Well, it's great to have special guests here today. Bjorn Baker joining us for the Darby Racing podcast. Bjorn, welcome. Well, that's an interesting story in itself. Your mum's from Sweden. Where did Murray and what's your mum's name?
Marianne. They met in the south of Germany.
Wow.
In a place called Umerlingen, and then she came back to New Zealand. I think she was maybe 19 or 20. And as you can imagine, it was a pretty big cultural gap back then.
Yeah.
Coming from Sweden, a totally different culture. She had to figure out these games, rugby and cricket and horse racing.
Yeah.
So it was all very foreign to her. No, it's worked out great. She's had I think she's more a New Zealander now than Swedish, and they're about to head off on a big holiday over to Europe. So, of course, my parents retired last year.
Right, wow. Obviously, your father, Murray, outstanding trainer.
Yeah, incredible.
Hall of Fame trainer in New Zealand?
Yeah, he is. He's a Hall of Fame trainer in New Zealand. He's had the most Group 1 wins by any New Zealand-based trainer in Australia, I think 22. And
wow.
He did very well. He actually had a remarkable last sort of 10 or 15 years of his training career. He got better and probably got the best horses of his career, including horses like Dundee and Mongolian Khan, and he had a lot of good fun at the back end of his career, and I saw a lot of his career go up and down. He had a horse called the Phantom, ran second in the Melbourne Cup.
Yeah, remember
he was a superstar and had some good fillies early days. So it's been interesting. So I've always sort of followed his horses. Had to work with them reluctantly at times.
Yeah.
And the track used to be away from the stable, so often he'd head off to the track and I'd duck back into bed.
So how old were you? When was that moment that you thought, I might have a crack at this?
This is for me.
You obviously went through uni?
Yeah, I went to Otago University and did a pharmacy degree. The vet university was actually at Massey, which was where I went to high school and close to my hometown. And I was just desperate to get out of Woodville, my hometown, that actually had a great racing history itself. Jim Cassidy was apprentice there. Bruce Marsh trained there. Sid Brown, before he came to Sydney, this is going back a long time, he had a lot of good horses. And had a Melbourne Cup winner in 63 or 64 called Polo Prince. But when you leave Woodville or Palmerston North, there's no such thing as homesickness. So I was desperate to get to Otago and away from Palmerston North. And then I was lucky enough to travel to Sydney in my young 20s for 3.5 years, met my wife, and then went to Europe for 4 years. At this time I was following racing closely, and I worked sort of for free part-time for John Ox, who was a great Irish trainer. And then I was about to turn 30, and Andrew and I headed back to New Zealand. We got married, and I thought I'd give it a crack with Murray. So I was there for, I think, 3 years in partnership. And that time we had a couple of good horses, including Lion Tamer that won the VRC Derby, and Harris Tweed, who came second in the Caulfield Cup, and we had a few good horses at home. So that sort of gave me the basis to come over. And
who initiated the partnership, yourself or your dad?
Oh, well, when I got back there, a few staff above me, so I had to chop their heads off and get there a bit quicker than I would otherwise.
So you left your dad early. Why did you leave? Why did you not want to? You sort of branched out and come to Sydney, and then went overseas for different trainers. Why did you leave the nest, so to speak?
Oh, I guess growing up and with my father, every good horse he had, he wanted to bring it to Australia. And so that was his aim. His aim has always been to get a good horse so he can get to Melbourne
Australia
in the spring or Sydney in the autumn. Yeah. And that's predominantly his aim. And so, and then I had this 3.5 years in Sydney and loved the racing. I love Australian racing.
What were you doing then in Australia, in Sydney?
I was a pharmacist.
So you were totally out of horses.
Yeah, I just used to go to the races and follow it.
Right.
But I sort of worked all over Sydney and to a degree New South Wales. So when I won a lot of races at Bathurst, I actually used to do a locum out there. They say ex-local Bjorn Baker. It's half true. So, yeah, and I just thought, well, we'll have a crack. And I had 2 slow horses and was tough days early on, but thankfully it's worked out really, really well.
Yeah.
Well, you're talking, you kicked off on your own in 2011-2012 season. Do you remember your first winner?
Yes, Sky Gaze at Bathurst is about 6-1.
How long were you training then?
Oh, it might have been
A couple of days.
No, I wish. It was more like a couple of months, I think.
Yeah, right.
So my first 2 runners were at Newcastle. The first one got beat 100 metres, and I thought, well,
Simply Magic.
simply magic.
Is this for me,
And
were you thinking?
Then a Fastnet Rock mare I really liked, and I thought, well, she'll go much better. And she got beat a furlong. She got beat 200 metres, so it was twice as
right?
bad.
Wow.
And so it was a very long trip back
Yeah.
from Newcastle.
Were you
that
contemplating,
day.
what am I doing?
Yeah, I did. I thought, well, what's it? I remember going to work the next morning, and either you dig in and go harder,
Yeah.
or you go home. You
You
either
go
have,
harder, knowing you go
yeah.
harder.
So yeah, it took a little bit. I remember I was driving home, and Hugh Bowman phoned up. He said, "Well, you can only get better, mate. You'll be right." He gave me a good tick along, and no, it was tough going. Even before I came, I tell you. So I went and knocked on Sir Patrick Hogan's door. And I made an appointment, went to see Sir Patrick Hogan, and I said, Sir Patrick, I'm going to Sydney. I'd love your support, Sir Patrick. And this is a god,
Yeah.
New Zealand racing
Isn't
and
he?
breeding.
Absolutely.
And he said, well, son, you're no chance. You should stay with the old man for another 10 years. It's the hardest place to train a horse in the world.
Well, he's
and,
right, yeah, Sydney.
I won't be giving you a horse at all, and you won't be a chance.
Wow.
And,
At least he was
At least
honest.
he was honest, yeah.
he was. So
Deflating, but
I
honest.
knew what I was up against, and fairness to him, after about 3 years, he gave me a horse. So,
Yeah, that's good.
so it was great to get the colours in. And
So
but,
why did you pick Sydney? Like, it is a tough precinct, and always has been Sydney.
my wife actually had family here as
Of
well,
course,
and
yeah.
then I knew the lay of the land to a degree from when
Right.
I was here, and I love Sydney. It's the best city in the world.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
brilliant.
weather-wise, it was fantastic, and after having a few years back in the New Zealand winter and being exposed,
Yeah.
it's
Get me out of
definitely
here.
much easier here. So from that point of view, Sydney's been great, and no, I'm glad to say it's home, and will be hopefully for the long term.
Yeah.
How many boxes did you start with when you first kicked off?
2 boxes. No, actually had a few more. It was at Warwick Farm, but where I am
So
now.
was it Warwick Farm?
Yeah, and so Warwick Farm I was hoping to go to Ramwick, and I think the best thing that happened was I did go to Warwick Farm, and in that stage too, Warwick Farm was definitely thought of as the Paul cousin to both Ramwick and Rosehill.
Yeah.
And now it's got the most horses in work. I'd argue that it's the most competitive training environment in Sydney. We've got so many trainers there.
Yeah.
You've got, obviously, Waller's got stables there. You've got Godolphin,
Ma.
Neesham, Portelli,
Yeah.
Matt Smith, David Pfeiffer, Godolphin.
Yeah. Yeah, there's plenty there, isn't there?
So it's really Joe Pride.
Joe
It's
Pride,
extremely competitive at Warwick Farm, and there's a lot of trainers that missed off the list too. So now it's pumping every morning. The level of professionalism has really continued to improve, and as much as anything, it's a good place to train horses. The tracks are great, and it's central. You can go north, east, south, west. So from that point of view, I think Warwick Farm has just been great for me. And sometimes when I'm there early in the morning and a bit lonely, I call it the Warwick Farm Penitentiary, but I'm able to stay out of trouble there, and it's a good place to get work done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
What's looking back those early days, and obviously you progressed as a trainer, did you call on your father a lot for advice, or did you just want to make the
stand on your own
mistakes as
feet?
you went by yourself?
probably more the latter, and it's sort of different racing too. What we would do in New Zealand would be completely different. I'd train pretty different from my father to a large degree. Saying that, a lot of the systems are the same, and I think Murray actually, as a trainer, he evolved, particularly in the last 10 years, where he probably became a lot easier on his horses and was able to adapt. So, yeah, a little bit of both for sure. And And at times too, the good horses, they do things that, to a degree, it doesn't matter if you train them hard or soft. And it's like a natural human athlete. You can send them on a 10K run every day, and they do it easy. Whereas if I go for a 10K run every day, I'll be in big trouble and I'll be sore every day and struggling, and I won't necessarily get better.
I've always thought that you're right. Those elite horses, pretty much, they know what they're doing. Yep. I've always thought the best trainers can get the best out of an average horse. They can get that horse to perform at its best. I think they're the best trainers.
That's the big question we've always talked about.
Yeah, we have.
Right through Derby Racing, and there's been a lot of debate about a really good horse. Let's just pick She Will Reign.
Yeah.
Could anyone train She Will Reign? Push button speed?
Yeah.
Or are we talking, different trainers suit different horses? Are we talking, they can be a Group 1 winner with one trainer and only a Group 3 winner with another trainer? Yeah. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a tough one, and I guess there's only one rule with horses. There are no rules.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you never really know. But no doubt, a lot of those horses, that natural speed, natural ability, they're going to be top grade wherever they go. A lot of it comes down to luck and circumstances. As we know, a lot of these top line horses only seem to have one really peak preparation at times, or maybe two. Yeah. And sometimes it's just about getting the perfect runs, even as much as gates and down to all those things. Yeah. But it's a tough one. A lot of it too is just about having a healthy, sound horse. I think that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And without having, like I remember John Ox, who was a great Irish trainer, he used to say, too far, too fast, too soon. So you've just got to build them up gradually. Yeah. I think that's the key. Yeah. That you've just got to take your time, and if you've got healthy, sound horses and the horse herd health as a whole, your whole team's healthy, and that's a big part of it too. And just I'd always like to think if we look after our horses at a young age, regardless of what ability level, at least we'll give them every chance as they mature to hopefully get the best we possibly can out of them.
Yeah, 100%. Because you want to hear from your trainer that your horse is heading into the race, especially once you get to that elite level, they're as good as I can get them. He's flying, he's sound, he's fit, he's healthy, he looks fantastic, he's ready to run the race of his life. Because you don't want excuses going in. You want to go in and he's there ready to rip. If he gets beat, he gets beat.
Yep, and even it just comes down to getting your timing so right and parading well and just trying to peak, and definitely that's part of it too. And even some of the good horses even we've got at the moment now, a horse like Overpass, I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit more, but even coming into the spring, we're much better set up in terms of where we're at. We probably have been in the past, and trying to get into those top races, and you've got to really but sort of make sure you're peaking early on rather than necessarily late on. So
it must be hard for a trainer, because you do have to get them to peak right at that right time. How do you actually do that? How do you do it?
I'm still trying to figure
I've always thought of it. Well, this is his grand final. It's like, right, well, how do you get him to peak on that grand final?
And the thing is too, that all those grand finals, there's no easy races. They're all so competitive. And I think that's the other thing, particularly in Sydney, with the increase in prize money, it's got tougher. It's definitely got harder. This year, I've had an amazing year. It's been my best year ever. But in terms of wins on a day-to-day basis and being competitive, and I've probably been a little bit more hit and miss than I've been in previous years. So from that point of view,
everything's got stronger. Country, you like to
season
tough horses out in the country. Out there.
Well, remember years ago, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, you could take a horse to Orange and Bathurst, and you'd be the only city trainer out there.
Yes.
You'd take him out there for a kill. I remember Dave Van Dyke did it with one of ours we had, and this was years ago. And we said, Mudgee, I thought you thought this filly was okay. He goes, I do, but I want to get her a kill, and honestly, if she can't win at Mudgee, she's not the horse I think she is. So we headed out to Mudgee, and there was all bush trainers. And then there's Dave Van Dyke and thankfully she went bang, and you go, how good's that? But
Yeah.
now
So
you're
all
out there, Portelli's out there, Smith's
Yep.
out there. Everyone heads out there.
everyone.
Annabelle,
Kieran.
Kieran Marr,
Yeah, people, if there's the right race.
Chris
too,
Lees, they all head out there.
all go there. And I remember David and I, we were a couple of the first ones to really do it on a regular basis and
Yep.
actually target. But I've had so much luck taking horses out wide and just taking them through the grades.
Well, Overpass did that.
Overpass, Shades
Yeah.
of Rose,
Yeah.
even Positive Peace. I've had horses surplus. I've had another couple of good ones too. So it's
Well, because it's all
definitely-
about building confidence, right? In
Yeah.
a horse. And you get a horse confident, they'll go above and beyond for you. So that's the aim of it, isn't it?
Yep, for sure. And as much too, the one thing about going out there, it's about that race experience, ring craft.
Yeah.
They have a big trip out there. I think a few of them it really toughens up too. You sort of,
Yeah.
and you know, once if they're hopefully they're good enough to come back into the city, they're going to be able to handle that float trip to Randwick or
Yeah,
Canterbury,
absolutely.
piece of cake, and it's been great for me, and that's a big part of it too. Now these races, the prize money's
But
really
as
good.
we always said, and I'm sure you're the same, I know we'd all love to win the Everest, if not a Saturday race or a stakes race, but
Yeah.
winning any race. I haven't found an owner yet that complains about winning a race. Not yet.
I'm
Well,
with you.
that was a big turning point for Darby Racing as a business, was David Van Dyke. Because before then, we'd never really had a lot of trainers that would head out that far.
No.
And when he said that, it really shocked me because it was like, Mudgy, what are the owners going to think? And he said, look, believe me. And he did that a lot, like
Yes,
yourself.
yep,
And
yep.
when he did it, and she won, last special her name was, nice, good filly, the owners were off the hook.
better.
We were in the office.
he-
we were in the
he-
office high-fiving and jumping around, and we're going, how good's this? Just because she won. Didn't matter where she was.
He loved the picket fence, Dave, so he could go to Mudgee, win.
And he'd
He'd
go to
go to
Nowra.
Class 1.
Yeah.
He'd then go to the provincial. By the time he
Yeah.
hit the midweeks, he'd already won three or
Yeah.
four races.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you've got race fitness,
And
you've
the
got
owners
race
are pumped.
confidence,
You got-
you've got,
yeah, you
and
got
you
a
know what
horse.
it's about.
Confident, through the roof. And, yeah, that really changed.
Yeah, I love picket fences too. They're just
Brilliant, aren't
hard to find.
So before we touch on some of these good horses, and we've got a stack of horses with you, we've had a lot of luck with you. What's the one thing in training, if you pinpoint one thing that you've learnt, improved on, gone, if I could go back, I remember you used to talk about Great Danzo, I wish I could retrain, the mother of Rupert and Isotope.
Yeah.
If I could go back then, what's one thing that comes to mind you think, geez, if I'd known, there's many things you've probably learned, but what's the one thing you go, you know,
Tell young Bjorn.
tell you,
Patience.
yeah,
Right.
Patience.
Yeah, right.
too quick to get them in?
But probably patience one, and the patience from another point of view that actually we sometimes with horses are probably I'm unlike probably most trainers where I a lot of trainers probably overrate their horses. I'm
Yeah,
probably
right.
the opposite. I probably underrate them as a
Right.
whole.
Yeah.
And at times I should have just aimed up at the big races rather than be happy to take the lead up races or have them up early ready to go.
Right, yeah.
But I think overall patience and even just coming back in the last 3 or 4 months, just come back a week or two or wait a week and just probably assess it, because by doing that you're probably going to have a horse for another run or two preparations. And but sometimes I've probably ran horses that have gone deep into the preparation and won too many.
Yeah.
But then you give them a good break afterwards, they come back sound and they seem to go to another level as well. So
Yeah.
it's sort of hard to weigh. But yeah, if I was going to have my time again, maybe just take a step back. And I've always been probably patient with the 2-year-olds as well. Not so much that, but just on a individual basis at times.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've trained a number of Group 1 winners. Your first one was Music Magnate. But before we go into those top-end horses, was there a horse before Music Magnate that kind of put you on the map, or was that the first horse that launched you?
Probably actually the first yearling I bought in Australia, I think, was Twilight Royale, that won the Inglis Nursery. and that was a $250,000 race. That was really good at the time, and she was by Testarossa. And there wasn't much of her. She was a lean, skinny horse, and then she won the VRC size produce, beating Seamus Award by nose, I think, that day, just. And from that, I went to the Magic Millions, and I didn't actually, that same Magic Millions sale, I bought an All-American filly out of Condesar that was a full to Yankee Rose, if you remember that.
I remember that. I remember when Yankee won at Rose Hill one day, and you come up to me and said, I don't know how you did that.
Yeah.
How did you pick that?
Yeah,
I've got the
so
full, and it's no
you
good.
paid about a tenth of the price. I paid 130, and she was just didn't have it. She was called
Amazing.
College Chick, that's right.
Yeah.
And so I bought her, I bought one other, and then I bought a Testarossa, predominantly because I thought, well, I'm a chance to sell it because I had Twilight Royale, and that ended up being unencumbered.
Right, yeah.
So a year
Wow.
later, he was back there winning the Magic Millions, which got horses into the stable.
Yeah.
And it's ironic because I worked for a stud when I was at university called Wakefield Stud, and I went up to the Magic Millions, and Testarossa had won that year. So when I was first time back as a trainer, I actually won with the son of Testarossa. So
Wow.
it's funny.
Tough sire, wasn't he?
Yeah, tough and good
Bred
sire.
that tough toughness in him.
And he was a top class 2-year-old. He won just under 2 million. Then he got sold as a stud, so he never came back as a 3-year-old. Which
So was he the first horse you think unencumbered that really lifted you to that next level?
yeah, I think so. And I think even having my time back, and as much as anything, I was just about getting horses into the stable.
Yeah.
And maybe I probably could have bought some better types, but I've come from probably a conservative environment. My father was never a great big purchaser of horses, and if he did, he always used to be very circumspect. But no, he was a good horse. And then Havana Ray was another tricky horse I got early on. He was a very good horse. He won the Ajax Stakes. Actually, he won the Group 2 Ajax when Dundee won the Rose Hill Guineas. So that was a good day for the family. And he was my first provincial winner, first city winner, first Saturday winner, and first stakes winner.
Wow.
So he did the whole shooting box. Big son of King Coogap Raw. I remember Michael Maxworthy came to look at him for Hong Kong after he had won a Canterbury maybe, and he wanted to know his weight. So I said to Corey, he was handling the horse, who's worked off and on for me at the moment, still works for me, but we still laugh about it today. So he walked him up. Anything out of routine, he just did not like it at all. So I said, Corey, take him up, we'll get a weight. And he just ran Corey straight into a tree, broke his shoulder, then just turned around and galloped full sprint straight down past us into the box. I said to Michael, and I remember just not moving, there's not a lot you can do. I said, well, you can see sound, he's a good galloper.
That's a good move, isn't he?
Did you get him sold?
So, no, thankfully he didn't want him after that. I think he wiped him out on attitude, but he ended up being a great horse. I think he won the best part of $500,000, but yeah, we still laugh about that. I said, Corey, geez, he was a good judge of character, that Havana.
So where did your first Group 1 winner come from, the Music Magnate? Britain Tycoon back in the early days
Yeah,
of
it's
Britain
funny how
Tycoon?
that works out too. So I actually got a horse very early on by Ridden Tycoon, and I'll be perfectly honest, I had no idea who Ridden Tycoon was.
Yeah.
And I looked up this pedigree, it's by Ridden Tycoon. He was a lovely horse, big white blaze, and it had like 10 dams on the page, and I'm thinking, far out. And Emily, who was over with Dundee, rode him in a jump out. And it was the first jump outs down the straight at Warwick Farm, which they still have, and he won by about 7 hard held and was just a machine. And she's like, what's this horse? He goes like an absolute top liner.
Yeah.
And then we had just sort of some immaturity issues, and he won a couple of trials, and he went to the races at Newcastle over 900, and he ended up beating Ball of Muscle.
Oh, right.
And from there he got sold to Hong Kong.
Right.
And so then I went to the New Zealand sales and I saw a ridden tycoon who I'd studied up a little bit more about. And I thought he must be a decent stallion.
He just got better and better, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and I was like, because my bloke had no pedigree and this horse doesn't have a whole heap either, but I liked him and bought him for 40,000.
Wow.
I remember saying to Jerry Harvey on the way out, I said, Jerry, I was going to ask you to stay on that horse. So by this stage I was got a bit of confidence. Don't worry, that's been knocked out of me. But I walked past Jerry Harvey on the way out. I said, Jerry, I was going to ask you to stay in this bloke, but he's so cheap I feel like I'm making money. I don't need you to stay in. And it ended up being Music Magnate.
Wow.
And as a 2-year-old, he didn't show anything.
Wow.
Really?
And we trialled him a couple of times. He was just nothing, and he's just a horse that kept improving. He always had he was always long.
Right.
And as time went on, he got better and better. We were able to take him right through the benchmark system until he won the Hallmark Stakes. And then he came second at Scone. Actually, the float got delayed in the Luskin Star, the 1300. So he only got to the track like half an hour or 35 minutes before. So I was glad they let us run him. And he came second to the good Not a Single Doubt of Crestfields. That ended up winning a Group 1 too. I forget the name. And then he went to the 10,000 after that, which I think is the Kingsford Smith. They've swapped it around the names.
Yeah.
And he was able to beat the horse of Kieran Mars that had the ownership dispute, the New Zealand bred. Yeah.
Yeah.
Escadelia. And then so
what was that like?
Yeah, that was a good day.
When you win
that
your
was a
first
good
Group
day. It
1,
was a good monkey off the back, and
yeah,
It is that, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Like how when Yankee Rose won, we've been doing it for 7 years.
Yeah.
6, 7
yeah,
years.
they're hard to win.
They
They're
are
really,
very
really
hard.
hard to win, and
Well, you're racing against the best of the best.
100%. And no, so that was a big relief. And he was a good horse. He was a quirky customer too. He had very much his own personality, and even swimming him every day, you had to be switched on. He just used to dive and gallop pretty much into the ball.
Really?
Yeah, he had his own personality, and it's funny how it works out.
But that's what you mentioned with him. It's something to, I guess, as a trainer too. It must do your head in sometimes. The amount of horses that show you nothing on the track, nothing on the training track, nothing at trials. But then you go to the races and they're just, it's like, what's this? Like they just all of a sudden they're an absolute racehorse.
Yeah, and you can never quite put as much as like now we've got. You can imagine we have all the data, the trackers, the heart rates, the gallops. You watch them and see how they go. But at the end of the day, come race day is a completely different beast, and horses that you think are going to go enormous. They can go the opposite. Then often it can be the casual horses that don't show much, become the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
What about for you? Are you more of a trainer that obviously track work is where you get your opinions from?
Guides, yeah.
You know, are you one for the clock, or are you one that if the clock's not bad, but you look at the action and just go, this horse got something. A bit like a trial where you can see trial winners, but you go, I'm not sure.
I
It won
would
a trial, but
definitely be more of a watch.
yeah,
Right.
And because time only counts when you're in jail. It can be very, very misleading.
Yeah.
Because depending on how heavy
100%.
the rider is, the type of track, and I'm very much into that. A lot of our main gallops too would have the tracker on, and then you'll be able to look at it later and see if it backs up what you think. But there's a lot of different sort of aspects too, and you've got to take into account a lot of things. So I'd definitely be keen to see how they go up and gallop, particularly on Tuesday before the race. A lot of the maintenance work as they build up through the prep, especially a horse, you know, their form, or that's and they'll be on the poly track. So it'd be the poly track is a great track, synthetic track that we use for track work every day. It's a big part of it.
Yeah.
But once again, they can run really quick times if you go full bore. So a lot of the race horses, their gallop before racing would be on the grass track.
Yeah.
what excites you more, blinding speed or determination and heart?
Blinding speed, I'll say. Blinding speed's always, and that's the thing when you're watching gallops. That's what excites you when you do see a horse just show really good speed.
Yeah.
And often the determined you don't know until after they race. So
No.
Well, that was the tale of
Sort
our
of-
two best fillies. She Will Rain just had untold
Blistering speed.
2-year-old speed, and Yankee just had freakish determination heart,
yeah,
run through a brick wall.
So she
kinda.
wasn't the flash track worker, Yankee Rose.
yeah,
And didn't trial that great, trialled okay. Found the line, which was good, but yeah, nothing exciting.
Under full pressure.
Yeah, she lifted,
That's when
found
you
another
find out what
gear.
you got.
that's true, and that's in this game. It's all pressure. It's all and I'm sure it's the same in a lot of sports. Funnily enough, I remember a few years ago I had dinner with an owner of mine, and he was a sponsor of the Souths, and I think Michael Maguire was there, and we had a good talk comparing horses and humans.
Right,
So
is that
there's
right?
unbelievably a lot of crossover. There's some
Yeah.
amazing
Hey,
trainers,
100%, yeah.
and he said, "Geez, it must be hard. Horses can't talk." Well, I said, "They can't lie either," and
true.
so they don't tell you what you want to hear, which they would often
Yeah,
tell.
true.
They know what they're supposed to say. So
Yeah.
it's funnily enough, you're dealing with elite athletes, same soundness, health,
Yeah.
well-being.
Natural ability.
And come into the heat of the game, pressure
Yeah.
changes everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
So
you-
I know playing sport. I played a lot of sport as a young fella, and when you get picked for a rep team, you go into that next level of competition, and everything rises. Everything rises. Their opposition's better. Everything's better. You feel it. You feel your other players. Everything lifts. So the pressure, and some people can't do it. Some people excel. It's like State of Origin is just about to happen. They're throwing new players in. If they can't go to that next level, they're found wanting badly. And it's the same with horses. When you go to that group level, or if they can't sustain, like Overpass say, like to be able to sit on pace in a group race, because the pace setting in group races is so much tougher, and they go to a whole new pain barrier. And if they can't handle it, they're gone before the turn.
And that's the thing I say to people. It's a bit, especially when you have a horse that goes forward. If they're not fit, it's like
Yeah.
going and doing a gym workout and going as fast as you can for the first 2 minutes and see how you finish off the last 2 minutes.
You fall off.
So it is, and that's and Sydney's got more competitive. It's got better.
Absolutely.
And as a whole, you've got to be like in terms of the trainers, even the syndicators. Everyone's getting more horses, better quality horses,
Yeah.
and really
It's tough.
you have to constantly review and have a look at yourself, because
Yeah.
if you're not competitive and you're not there when in the thick end of things, you're going to be left out. So it definitely keeps. There's no relaxing.
No.
It's always,
No.
and as you guys know, you're constantly looking for that next horse and
Absolutely.
how you're going to do it, where we're going to get our next horses, and
Well, it really is a results-driven industry. Like any professional sport, it's results-driven. If you don't get those results, people will just move on to the next person.
yes, yep.
Well, if you're not getting the results, you're relying on how you communicate,
Yeah,
but results will trump everything.
yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's just how it is.
And you would know as soon as you win those group races and your phone starts ringing. I've got a horse for you. I've got a.
Derby sends a few more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we want. That's what we want.
That's what we all want.
Now, we were talking blinding speed not long ago, winning Rupert.
Yeah.
Yeah, even forgot.
Was he
about
one out of the
him.
box or one that crept up on you? Was he one that the moment you let him off the bit, you went, holy heck.
Yeah, and he's related into the music magnate and whole ridden tycoon story. So I thought I'd buy 2 horses at the March sale at the Magic Millions, because there are a few ridden tycoons up there. I bought one filly. I could sell 10% of her. She cost 36,000, and she was slow. I think I sold her for about 5,000 or 6,000 to West Australia.
Yeah.
And then I had him, and he showed a lot early days, and I couldn't sell much of him either. And as time went on, I managed to offload a little bit, and thankfully my wife still kept 7.5%, but he showed a lot. Showed good ability early. I think he got better, but I was definitely sort of trying to possibly get him into the Magic Magic Millions, and then he just, like a lot of horses, I think he had foot problems early. And then he was able to come back, and I remember another trainer at Warwick Farm said to me, look, we're trying to win this trial today, could you ride him cold? So we got back and he just worked home and he looked pretty good doing that. Then I took him, I won't say names, another jockey rode him at Rose Hill, he won the trial, he said, oh, he's okay.
Right.
And I was like, oh, geez, I thought he went a bit
I
better
think
than
he's
that.
better than that. Yeah.
Wow.
We actually got an offer from Hong Kong, and normally I'm quick to sell everything, and I was like, no, I like this horse, we're going to have a crack. So we took him up to the first start at the Sunshine Coast, he won.
Right, I remember
Yeah.
that.
And
I did,
and then he won the Champagne Stakes, and we put him out after that. And we were going to bring him back for like the Sydney races, possibly the Golden Rose, but he got a temperature and he wasn't right, so we gave him extra.
Right.
Then I thought we'll just go to the Magic Millions, and had a good
All
run
the
through
lead-ups.
there, and the Magic Millions didn't quite work out, but
Broke two track records?
yeah, I think so. 2 track records, and he was really quick. He could run his sectionals like when he was in that preparation. He was very, very fast, and that big break actually he just developed so much. And I remember after not seeing him for maybe a month or 6 weeks when he had his extended spell, I saw him. I said, "Wow, he's just changed so much.
Wow.
He's just put on condition, grown, developed, and no, he was a good horse actually. And I think I've had a pretty good run with the winning Ruperts. They've definitely got ability.
Yeah,
They've got a lot
they
of them have got a speed. I've got I own a Merc.
Yeah.
Who I think for Darby syndicators, there'd be syndicators in the world.
Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. The moment your life changed, probably, 6 or 7 years ago? When they knock on your
even
door?
longer. Funnily enough, it's funny how that works out too, because I had a good friend of mine, and still a good friend, called Rob Woods, and he had top line thoroughbreds.
That's
So I had a
right,
few
yeah.
for Rob, and he said, mate, just why don't you give Scott Darby a ring? He's a good fella. So I remember I phoned up Scott, hey, any chance I could train a horse for you? I'd love to train for
What
you.
did I say? I don't remember.
No, I think you're pretty complimentary.
Yeah.
And I'm not too sure how after you said you'll definitely give me a couple, and it's worked out really, really well.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking some of the early ones.
I know one of the...
Salita, early
Yeah,
days.
Salita was one of the...
We won 4 in a row.
Yeah. She put the picket fence together.
Irathea was one of the early
Yeah,
ones.
Irathea, and she was a tough
She
mare.
started at Clary's early, and then when we had the fallout with Clary, Yankee went to Dave Van Dyke,
Yeah, right.
Irathea
Yeah.
went to yourself. So a couple of handy horses.
They were. And,
Yankee
and
was
she was
unraced.
a horse that I thought if we can win a provincial race or two will be great.
Yeah.
But as time went on, she just
She did,
improved,
didn't she?
improved,
She's got better and
got
better.
bigger and stronger and sounder. And she ended up winning just under $1 million. I think
Yeah.
946. Nobody's counting. But she...
Big, strong, good-bodied filly.
Yeah.
Not the greatest legs, long in the pasterns.
Well, she did
early
have
days.
some soundness issues early. And
Yeah,
you nursed
and
her through those.
She, I remember I was very confident when she won the Hawkesbury Crown, 1300.
Yeah.
She'd come second in the Sapphire,
remember
and
that.
I thought, this is the day. She is airborne flying, and she was able to just get a soft lead and kicked at the 600 and just ran phenomenal sectionals. Like, not possible to catch her.
Yeah, no.
That was a good day. But then she came fourth in a Group 1, so I think.
Yeah,
against
she did.
Smith.
That was up at Eagle Farm, yeah.
Yeah, super run. Just
it was
got
great.
beat probably under a length or not far. So
I think what you did so well with her is you looked after her.
Yeah.
You got longevity out of a mare that early on had issues,
Yeah.
didn't have the greatest legs, but she was still racing at 6.
Yeah, 6, I think even. And I remember a couple of times we gave her really good breaks.
Yeah,
we
we
actually
did.
just put her out and said,
Yeah.
look, we'll just give her, I'm happy with her, but we'll give her, whether it was 2 or 3 months on a couple of occasions.
Yeah,
And
we did.
sort of paid dividends. And she just had the best temperament, lovely
Yeah,
to
she did.
train. And
And when they've got, I mean, regardless of talent, but especially when they're showing that talent, you're happy to really look after them because they can really repay you on the track.
yeah,
Those
and that's
sorts
it.
of horses.
There's the old, probably, even when I came over 11 years ago, you'd be setting them from carnival to carnival, spring to autumn,
Yeah.
spring to autumn, autumn to spring, and the whole time you're setting up there, and now there's pretty much races everywhere. You know, like West Australia, we wouldn't look at West Australia now. Darby Racing and we get the West Australian calendar every month. You've got Melbourne, you've got Queensland Racing's going really well. The Carnival's going good up there.
Yeah.
So it's sort of just you've got the Magic Millions too, which has gone from strength to strength in the summer. So there's just unlimited good races if you have a good horse. And not even if you have a horse at a specific distance, short or long course. There's sort of races everywhere. So we're in a very lucky position, and particularly in Sydney, we're relatively central now. So it's easy, north, south, east, west. We can do the lot.
We can do the lot.
Now, one of the great stories for Darby and Bjorn Baker, obviously, Sammy Samadoubt. Started out pretty average sort of horse. But he's
solid horse.
one that just kept improving and improving and improving. And I still remember when you got him to win the Canberra Cup, it was phenomenal because I'd been telling all the owners the prep before. He sort of bottomed out, if you remember, around that benchmark 78.
He did.
Son of not a single doubt, strong fella. And I kept saying, I think that's it. But those owners, they couldn't be told. They said, no, he's a champion. Yeah, and when you got him to win a Canberra Cup, I thought that was the most amazing feat to take this bottomed out bench. You know, you get those plenty of horses that peak.
Yep.
Well, they just reached their limit. And he was, because I was racing manager then, and I remember you'd try and place him on Saturday and he'd run okay, but he was just at his limit. And then you'd put him back to midweeks to try and, but he'd get too much weight and it was just so tough.
Yeah, tough. And you're just getting a bit of that cycle at times. You can't seem to break it.
No.
But we ran in the Breeders' Plate.
Breeders' Plate.
Yeah.
We ran about 20 to 1.
Yeah.
Second
We ran
last.
No, we actually doing it that year.
It would be Caprera.
Caprera. Yeah, and he ran last.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a good race that day. Probably on thin ice with Darby.
But if the Canberra Cup wasn't a big enough feat, like that blew me away, and I had to sort of eat humble pie with the owners.
Timmy Clark. Yeah.
You then hatched
he
his
rode
plan
him. Super.
He did.
in the spring, and I still remember you ringing me and saying, "Listen, boss, I think we have a crack at the Group 1 Week Stakes."
He's gone to a new level. Yeah.
With which horse? I said, Samadoubt. I said, you're mad. He said, no, because you get the stayers coming back. He's flying this horse. He's come back. I'm like, Samadoubt, the one that couldn't get past benchmark 78 until you won a Canberra Cup. This is 1,400 metres. I think he's very elegant in the race.
Yeah, there's a lot of good horses.
A lot of good horses.
50 to 1.
A lot of good horses.
I didn't end up going.
I think he came into 40s, so he got back, didn't he? I know he was the mounting yard. Lizzie Jelfs had him clearly on top.
Really?
But his work into that was, I remember we took him to Canterbury one day.
Yeah.
Whether they were doing some track renovations at
Yes, he had a gallop out of
Warwick
Canterbury.
Farm. And look, I said the one thing we're going to win is fitness. And by this stage, he is a big, strong horse with a
big strapping
massive
horse, wasn't he?
chest, right?
Yeah.
The girth on him, just a huge engine. And he wasn't straightforward either.
No, he was
but he was
quirky too,
just
wasn't he?
full of beans. And I said, right, well, the only way, I think this was Tuesday, a week and a half out. I said, the only way we're going to be compared, and there weren't a lot of other options too. I would have loved to take an easier option, but when you looked at the calendar for that particular sort of 3-4 week frame, there's literally one race. So I was like, well, we've got to get him up and going. We know he's going to be better from the Canberra Cup now at 2,000 metres, but I was like, he's going super, this horse. And I remember thinking the only way we can win is win on fitness. And he was so big and strong and burly, and he seemed to do really well in that break after the Canberra Cup. I don't know whether he did well, or in my mind he did well because he's now stakes winner. But I took him to Canterbury, and we just gave him a full, like pretty much, he did the full lap of the course, full bore and just galloped brilliantly
Wow.
and just recovered and came back. I said, well,
Was Brandon on him then?
yeah, he was
Yeah,
on him. And
yeah.
so, and
He's a good judge, Brandon. Isn't he?
yeah, and we were like, he's going pretty good, this horse, and he's going to have to be. We were under no
Yeah,
illusions.
yeah,
Like,
it's a
we're not
Group
getting
One.
carried away.
Yeah.
And then he got to the race, and I thought, well, he's a show today, and I thought he might be able to get a soft lead. As it was, there was about 3 horses that pushed forward.
Yeah.
He actually ended up having to do a fair bit of work,
Did too.
and
You're right.
and he was just so strong throughout the race. And the
Yeah.
last furlong, just sort of, I wouldn't say he won easy, but it was a dominant win. So.
Yeah.
No, that was a massive thrill from
Wasn't
Winks to Samadoubt.
Wasn't it? What? That's right.
I reckon-
And he ran faster time, wasn't it?
Well,
he
yeah,
ran faster.
he
Ran a very, very quick time.
He did.
It was
He did.
I
super
reckon you
quick.
changed the face of that race because the Winx Stakes was upgraded to Group 1, I think, a year or two before because of Winx.
Yeah.
But it was for your stayers coming back. And I think when he come out and won that, more trainers started targeting, not just with stayers coming back.
And it's one thing that I've done over the years, sort of hit the races first up, even Overpass and the expressway, and you try and catch them off guard. And but just back to Samadoubt, but then the next race. So
Oh,
I
how
gave
good
him a
was that?
couple of gallops in between
Yeah.
because he came through that run so well. And I was like, this horse is actually improved. I phoned up Scott. I said, mate, if he won the other day, he won before the Saturday, he is
No,
airborne.
you were better than that because we were having a good day in your box. He was 10-1. We'd already backed him because we had constant flight that wasn't going to get beat there. We had all the all-ups going, not for a lot of money. And I remember walking through the betting ring before, as he's about to go out, and I said, because, he's 10-1.
It was a Group 2 that day.
Group 2.
Yeah.
I said, Ben, what do you think? I grabbed you. He said, mate, I reckon he'll bolt in. I reckon he's going better. And you go, well, he got $50 on me. And he just annihilated him.
And that one is the all-time classic of Timmy Clark looking around going, where is everyone? Like, he bolted
There's
in.
not many moments like we all fantasize about your trainer or somebody giving you the tip the
Yeah.
last minute, and some come off and some don't.
Yeah.
That's one that
Yeah,
you
that
could have
was-
gone, because normally you are pretty like, but the sun's
Dispensations, yeah.
coming this way.
Yeah.
It could be.
Yeah.
I just a bit worried about his hoof or this or that. You just looked at me and said, mate, I reckon he's going to bolt in it.
He's just winning.
I reckon he's going to bolt
We
in.
got even what they say, a blind squirrel can find the odd acorn.
But that's 10-1. It wasn't like $1.90.
Yeah,
so.
that's it. And they all thought the first up run was a fluke.
They did.
Yeah.
And so,
So when he come out and crushed that, it was like, wow.
and really off that run alone, he probably should have been shorter. But they all saw he was 50-1, and
Yeah.
and then he went to after that prep, he went to the Hill Stakes and just got beat
Yeah.
by
He did too. That was a big
very
run.
elegant,
Very elegant.
nose
I
up
remember
to
it.
2,000.
Yeah. Yeah. He only
Was-
got beat a length and a half or something.
No, it was the nose.
No,
wasn't
it's-
it? It
yeah,
was
no, it
photo
was too.
finish.
Yep.
Yeah.
He
Wow.
went absolutely super.
Unbelievable
So he was
prep.
It was a great story.
He was an absolute top class horse.
Yeah.
Absolute.
He only just arrived when he
Oh,
Yeah.
he
Injured
blew his
himself.
tendon. Yeah.
So
never really done anything like, he'd never had a real
well,
problem.
and he'd always been so sound. So that's the other thing. We're able to get him into a position of a big, strong horse. And
Yeah.
probably finally found the key to him.
Yeah. And then we put the time into him, give him 12 months out, rehabilitate him, brought him back. He was trialling well, and then went again.
Yeah.
And that was sad.
Tough going.
So luckily for us, Wild Oaks loved him that much. They've given him a forever home out there.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, he's out there. He loves life. He's a freaking house. He's that big.
Oh, he's a square.
He's
he
a
actually
big
got more of a
horse.
square
And
later on.
do you
Big
remember
horse.
why you got given that horse?
Well, I liked him at the sales, didn't I?
Well, I actually
No,
bred him with Gary Bashel. We bought him in foal. This is when Not a Single Doubt stood at 20 grand. And Gary had 75% of him, and I liked him at the sale, but he wasn't an overly big horse at the sale.
No, neat sort of.
And I remember saying to Nick Hodges, I said, what's he going to make? He said, oh, mate, he's not real popular at all. I'm like,
Yeah.
so I like him. And I said to Gary, I said, we're gonna put 40 grand on him. I said, if he doesn't make 40, I'll be on him at 40. And funny story, it got knocked down here, but before it was sitting on about 30, and I'm going, who's bidding against me? It was my old trainer, Clary Connors. He was the underbidder. So it could end up in Clary's stable. But the reason we gave it to you is because we gave you the year before Malmsteen.
That's
The
right.
half-brother.
Malmsteen. He was
Malmsteen.
half brother to Malmsteen.
Was he before or after?
He was
He was before.
Yeah.
Before,
He was the ready to run horse.
He was a good horse.
Yeah, and we'd only just met
was,
you then, and you kept saying this Malmsteen. I'm telling you, could be a group horse, and we're like, we've heard all this before from all the trainers. So we're like,
He was by Beneteau. Yeah,
he was.
that's right.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
we put him tried to put him through a yearling sale at HBTA, Gary and I.
Couldn't get
Couldn't
10
get 10
grand for him.
grand. So we're all ready to run him.
Yeah.
We do all the ready to run. We took a number of horses that year. He breezed up really good. This is before
Yeah.
Beneteau had hit his mark.
Yeah.
Couldn't
Couldn't
get
get 20.
20 grand
I
for
think
him.
he wanted 20 or 25.
I cracked
Just
it.
shows you he was a nice looking horse.
Yeah.
Always had plenty of
was.
quality.
Yeah.
Good head.
Yeah. So then we ended up saying, we'll bugger it. We'll try and win a trial with him and sell him to Hong Kong.
He
And
actually,
that's where you came in.
might be right. But Samadoubt might have come before him. He may have been the older. That's why he ended up with Malmsteen now that he is. So I might have
And
mixed
we
the
got
two
good
up.
money to
Oh,
Hong
sure.
Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Job done.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Beneteau took off and died.
Yeah.
Like
he was a
he's a
freak,
very good
Beneteau.
stallion. But summoned out the first real top liner for Darby Racing, Bjorn Baker. But it kept going. I mean, horses like Harpo Marx,
Yeah, and
first of the imports.
he was, and he's a horse that showed nothing. Showed
Didn't he what?
absolutely
Amazing, isn't it?
nothing. I thought very well bred son of Galileo. I thought
Galileo out of Nikita, the Group 1
Yeah,
Group
sprinter.
1. Kilmore. Yeah.
we're in big trouble in Little China here.
Yeah.
And he could hardly raise a gallop. And then we took him to his first start at Hawkesbury, I think over 1,800.
Yeah.
Might have been 14, 18.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't keep up. But he actually finished off well
closed
late.
off.
So he's one of those horses you get into the race. And
Yeah.
and then he just learnt what it was about. And he was probably a little bit unlucky in the Metropolitan when he ran 30, won the Premier's Cup. And,
Yeah.
and then from there, we went to Melbourne in the Moonee Valley Cup, and he had been scanned to get into the Melbourne Cup, and
Yeah.
they found a cyst in a leg that we never knew about it. Then he was operated on, which got infected, and it's a cruel game, I
Isn't
tell
it?
you.
He was only just arriving, really. I mean, because
Yeah.
that was the year we
Yeah.
bought Spirit Ridge, Harpo
Yeah,
Marx,
Harpo Marx.
and something else.
Yeah.
Spirit Ridge came on the scene with a bang, and
Yeah.
Harpo took his time. But by the time they met a year and a half later, Harpo had taken over Spirit Ridge, who'd won stakes races. Remember the Kembla race we had?
Kembla
Yeah,
race
that's
where it
right.
was,
It was
yeah,
a ding
neck and
dong
neck
and
down the
Harpo
straight.
just had the
We
final
had some
crack.
very happy owners that
Yeah,
day
in
and
the
some
middle
very
of
upset
COVID.
owners.
Yeah.
In the middle of COVID,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was a horse, again, like your Samadoubt. It's one thing to get these really good horses, but there's two horses that took a long time to get there, but when they got there, we lost them early.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Cruel.
You have to be resilient in this game, very resilient.
We-
And he was so easy to train as well. He was a laid back customer, easy to do anything with, and
Yeah.
so I definitely missed him. You also think, and you can't really think like this, but you do think what could have been, or
Yeah.
maybe we could have done things differently. But in the scheme of things, like, it was crazy how it worked out. We got told about the scan results 3 hours before the race at Randwick in
that's
the middle
right,
of
yeah.
COVID.
Yeah.
And he was favourite, or equal favourite for $1 million race. And they're like, well, you can't really run. Obviously, we'll leave the decision, but we're put in an awkward position that if
Very
something
awkward.
did happen,
Yeah, that's right.
you'd never forgive yourself.
Yeah.
And
And they brought that vetting in, didn't they, to try and stop some
Horses
of the
breaking
problems
down.
going on and the bad press that they were
and,
getting. And
it's probably one of the scenario, particularly with him, you sort of wish nothing was ever done, and
Yeah.
even as it is hindsight, you'd be happy to run him in Sydney and Brisbane for the money, and he was a sound horse too.
Mm-hmm.
So
It was a bit of a shock when that all
I know.
went down that way.
yeah, and it was actually it was hard for me, hard for you guys, and for the owners. Distressing as much as anything to be told, I think, early afternoon.
And whilst Harpo was doing the deeds on the track and Samadoubt, we also had a brainwave idea. I remember being in the shower when I had this idea to buy a ready-to-run horse, but spend some proper money on a horse called Malkovich, who was named in a breeze-up sale.
He was too.
Unraced, trial winner. Knew he was going to make sort of 200,000 to 400,000 if depending if he ends up in Hong Kong, but just thought everything I'd seen about the horse, his breeze up, his trial, his breeding, the athleticism of the horse, I thought I'd hatched a plan. I remember ringing you saying, if I can buy this horse, he's just won a trial. The golden gift is coming up in 6 weeks' time. What do you think? Because that'll be my sell point, because I love the horse, but we're going to have to spend money on this horse. And we've got to have a sell point that owners can go, yeah, get me in, and you were like, you were on board straight away. You said, yeah, I like it, but went to 240 grand, which, a fair bit of money for a ready run horse for us.
Yeah.
But Malkovich, what a money spender he's been.
Oh, he's been outstanding, and I'm still hoping the best is yet to come. He's probably not as he doesn't like Scone, but I'm looking at the Gold Rush Trophy. He got a couple of runs ago, and
runs well at Randwick. He's run well at Randwick.
He's a good horse. He's quick too. He's a very fast horse.
Very fast, isn't he?
Good looking. He's been a pleasure to train too, and he's a horse that you look back and he'd won a trial in sub 54, I think, when you bought him.
Yeah.
He's undefeated at the trials. I'd love to know how many trials he's had, but he's never been beat.
Yeah, well,
not that they pay out on the trials, but it just shows you the speed.
Yeah, he's got very, very quick.
And it was good purchasing when you think back now, because it's hard enough. Well,
we got into that golden gift, but it'd probably done enough.
Fifth and 1100, and he probably just had enough. But fifth or sixth, he might have run sixth. But he went. He's been a great horse to train. Best is yet to come. He's just nearing $1 million, so hopefully he can tip over in the next couple of runs.
Yeah. I mean, up until this prep, he was an entire. It was a shame we couldn't find, even a small stud to stand him. It's such a good-looking horse, well-bred horse. You don't have to be a Group 1 winner or even a Group 2 winner to stand at stud, but I thought he had a lot to offer. But these days, the stallion market's so competitive. And the decision was made to geld him, and he's a sound horse, as you said. We might have another couple of seasons with him yet,
Yeah, and it's a tough one with the stallions, and hopefully we've got more than a couple. Hopefully we can get 3 or 4, and we can. And some of these sprinters, they can definitely hold their form for a little bit longer too. So
and can change as they get older. Like predominantly, he's been that 1,000, 1,100 metre horse. Maybe he'll be that for the rest of his life. Maybe at some stage he'll get out a little bit further. You wouldn't know. But still doing it. Obviously, he's come back really well, and hopefully we can. He's in for this Saturday and see how he goes. But which leads us to the one that's taking all before him at the moment, as in prize money. I see he's your highest earning horse now, Overpass.
Clearly, and he's been a great ride, and I'm hoping it's only the start of the ride. He early days, track work wise, never showed a lot.
Yeah,
and even up until this recent prep, he's never been a great track worker. I'd say the work after Perth though, has definitely his work leading into the Doomben 10,000 was good.
Right.
I think he's definitely getting better. I think he's once again we made the hard decision to geld him, and his 2 runs this preparation have been unbelievable. His run in the Quokka was, I think it deserved a lot more merit.
Yeah, absolutely.
First time left-handed, a trip over, he got lost on the corner. A little bit of cut in the track, so I think he's better on a rock-hard track, but still very good regardless of conditions.
And he had to do work to get across from that
gate.
gate.
To do work, and then it's running the Doomben 10,000. Well, I'd say in a big race, he had to work, never able to find the front, had to sit outside.
And that 70-1 shot that was annoying him, that finished last or second last, that drove me insane. I don't know why stewards don't get involved in that sort of stuff. It really annoys me when they're coming up when they're on a 70-1 pop and they're annoying the crap out of a favoured horse, and they bust and run nowhere. They should be hauled in. If that horse sustains it and you kind of go, oh, well, there you go, no, well done.
They actually missed the best opportunity to give their horse every opportunity.
Absolutely.
So that's at the end of the day, as the trainer and owner, that's what we want. We just want to have every opportunity. If we can get a gun run, you take it. But he's been a marvellous horse, and he's sort of, and we've been able to, now we can look after him. We know he's better, probably a little bit on the fresh side. He's better at 1200. And there's just options galore for him. So I think, wow, we'd love to.
It's only a 4-year-old rising 5,
Yeah,
so he's only just taking off. But there's a big question I want to ask about Overpass. Have you had a chance to thank Mark Newnham yet for Overpass?
No, I haven't. I think he got offered him, didn't he?
Did.
Yeah, he did.
I even remember where we were standing, because it's obvious, I remember you came past while we were looking at him, you and Jim Clark, and you said, nice horse, are you guys on this? I said, yes. We said, yeah, we love him, And he goes, yeah, no, he's on our list too, keep me in mind. And then we're looking at each other thinking, I'll probably go to Mark, because Mark's trained two out of Walkway,
Yeah.
Because that's how you kind of try and... And we offered it to Mark, and he said, no. He said, no.
2 out of the man, they're no good.
They're no good. And I instantly thought, oh, well, Bjorn loved him. I'll send it to Bjorn.
Jeez, it just shows
Poor old
you.
Mark.
That's right, you very rarely turn down the horses. So, and he's just, I think he's continuing to get better. And he's only going to get a bit stronger, and he was beaten, 2.5 lengths in the Everest last year. It's hard to argue that he's not at least a couple of lengths better as a gelding this preparation.
He's won nearly $4 million now.
Yeah.
And it's the Everest is a long way from Orange.
Well, that's where he won.
That's where he started.
Well, I would say, when he won that Quokka, the emotions, first of all, you thought, Mealy's your goddess. So you were initially devastated and kicking your dog and all the rest of it. But then when they showed the replay and he won, the emotions that come over you are just unbelievable. But the feeling for that horse as well, because he's such a good horse and he's racing against the best of the best in Sydney and acquitting himself well. So to go over there and do that and win and really put his name up in lights, I was just so happy for him, as well as the owners and you and us.
I must say,
but for the horse, it was
I didn't ride him at all that day, and then I thought we'd got beat in the last stride.
Done.
And
it was
I think
heartbreaking.
it was quite funny. All the East Coasters, the people from Sydney and owners, we all thought he'd got rolled. Where I think a lot of the locals thought we'd won. They know the track.
Interesting.
No, it was a great day. It was an
It was a
amazing
tough decision to go over, because if you remember, you handballed it over to me saying, look, there's not a lot of options, Doomben 10,000, but that's in here. We've got a Hong Kong race, the Quokka. I remember when you first floated the Quokka to me, I'm like, the Quokka?
Yeah.
WA, what are you on? I really wasn't on board at all. And anyway, you had 2 people interested. First person said, oh, this person's interested in the slot holder.
Slot holder.
And I went, oh, whatever. And it's the second one, Ram Racing, and I tell you, he said, look, this bloke's wrong. Can you deal with it? And I wasn't sold on it at all.
No, we weren't at all.
It was the slot holders that convinced me and had me completely on board. And I think you had done the negotiation, you'd be the same, but you were kind of with me going, I was completely and utterly sold by then, gone from thinking, what drugs are you on? We're not going to WA, to going, mate, we have to go. But you were thinking Everest.
Yeah. Well, I was the same.
There's a trip over, and we've got the TJ Smith, and and it was quite a tense time negotiating that.
It's not easy, and it's the one thing that, well, thankfully it's worked out great.
Yeah.
And those are the sort of things that you're gonna. And as it was, the best thing that happened was the TJ Smith being a wet track.
The rain and
I know, well, you guys early on, you're like, well, there's no point running.
Yeah.
And I think even after the first race, it was wet, and the
Yeah,
second
it
race
was
was
very much
atrocious.
diabolical.
So then it was like that. It's clear cut.
And he's no good.
And
in the
as it
wet.
was, he had a day out at the races. It was still good for him. And one of the things that made it viable was the flight straight
Yeah.
from Sydney to Perth rather than going to Melbourne. So
Well, and then it was going to be, he had to catch a truck back, which was, but the Ram Racing guys were that adamant. They said, we'll even pay for your flights back. Like, they were, I remember him ringing me because we were sort of going, the Quokka. And he rang me and he's going, I'm telling you, the more I talk to these guys, they are onto everything. The Ram guys are onto everything. And I remember the phone
Yeah.
call. And you were just saying, these guys are onto everything. You brought up all the horses that potentially could have been not coming.
All credit, I said this on the other podcast, all credit to Ram Racing as in getting us there.
Yeah.
Because I was completely not on board.
No.
Bjorn was just floating the idea.
Yeah.
But after speaking to them on a number of occasions, they had
Yeah.
me convinced. Because
Yeah.
I didn't want to go over there and run midfield or
No.
a nice fourth. We can do that here in,
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
Group
Yeah.
1.
Yeah.
Like, we'd proven we can do
Yeah.
that over and over again. And if you're going over there, you want to go to win.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to believe you can win. And they
Yeah.
had me believing
Yeah.
you can win. I suppose getting closer to the race and the spruik about Amelia's jewel started to,
Yeah, it
to
started to
grow.
lift.
And, you know, people had her unbeatable.
Unbeatable, yeah.
You know, but yeah, I agree. I remember being there at TJ Smith Day. I think had that not been such a wet track, we could be a completely different result right now. And as we know, Giga Kick's probably the one to beat in Australia now in the sprints. We went over, we conquered the Quokka, and then, as you said, in the Doomben 10,000, probably his best run of his career, to be
I
honest.
would say
Yeah,
definitely
Doomben
the best,
10,000 was,
the
yeah.
best run of his
Yeah,
career.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's
Which is
worked
weird to
out.
say when you're winning a $4 million rate, but that in a Group 1 of that quality and that level, and to be beaten again by the best sprinter in the country.
Halfway through, I was like, we're doing it tough.
This
here.
thing's softening us up in front. We could be in trouble here.
And he's got a very high cruising speed, and that's the other thing we've probably learnt, that we're better off being more aggressive and use that natural speed and that big ticker he's got rather than trying to just ride him a touch quieter. So
Well, it seems to be the thing, doesn't it, with Orothea, Samadoubt, those front runners. Graceful Glamour was another one for. If they can get uncontested leads, they will give you that real good kick, and they're so hard to chase down. But if you try and be conservative on them, the minute that field envelop, they sort of just put the brakes on. They kind of half give it in.
and you're probably taking away the best asset in a way.
Run
So
them ragged, so to speak.
It's he's been a great horse.
Hasn't he?
And plenty more to come. But, well, Bjorn, it's been quite the ride. You've gone from, really only been training in your own right for 10, 11 years, 12 years. You're in the top 5 in the premiership. You're winning Group 1 races. You're with the best syndicator in Australia, if not the world.
Here.
Well, I've got stats here. Like only the last couple of years, you finished 5th last year. You've equal 5th again this year. But more importantly, looking at the trainers above you, like Kieran Maher's got 600 horses, Chris Waller's got 433, Annabelle's got 315, Gay Waterhouse and Adrian have got 275. You've got 147. So you don't have anywhere near the horses that they've got. But to be able to get, you're punching with them with their weight. And between us, we've had 22 stakes performers and one over 7.3 mil.
Well, there we go. We missed the first time, but
See?
it is. It's
So you don't
Well,
have
there you
anywhere
go.
near the horses.
You don't have the bullets.
I don't.
You don't have the bullets of them, but you're up there fighting with them.
Yeah, and that's why we have to really look after our horses
Yeah.
and make sure they come back prep after prep. And I couldn't be in the position I am now without Darby. You guys have been absolutely fantastic to me. Great to train for, and hopefully this is only the start. I'm a bit disappointed. We've only got 3 of the trophies out.
Well,
here.
we couldn't
More
fit them
in
all.
way.
That's all the room we could
Could have
get.
filled the table. But, no, it's been a great ride. We're going to have a lot more fun, and there's plenty happening over over the next few days, yet alone next week and month and months coming up. And no, it's a great place to be in Sydney, and thank you very much.
More than
No,
welcome,
thank
mate.
you. Look, I always said you're a man of my own heart. The determination,
Yep.
have a crack.
Yep.
That's all I can ask for in someone. We've loved having horses with you, and I'm sure there's going to be much more success to come.